What's going on, GGEN? We are back with the theater room deep dives. We have a lot of just stuff in the works. We've been MIA for a little bit, but we're going to be coming back strong. This month, I should say, is a big month. We have so many freaking movies coming out.
It's a wild month. I can't believe how many movies we have coming out in succession like this.
It's crazy. We already did Fast X, right? We did the Fast X deep dive. Now today we're going to be hitting Across the Spider-Verse, which is the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. We have somewhat quickly, we're going to do Transformers Rise of the Beasts. So almost immediately after that, we're going to do The Flash. We got Indiana Jones at the end of the month. Extraction 2 comes out Friday, January, was it the 19th? I think
I think it's out now. I got to think
it's this Friday.
Oh, no, coming Friday, June 16th.
June 16th. Oh, yeah, the 16th. So it's this Friday. So we got a couple days for that. We got to squeeze in there also. That's not to mention that we got Marvel's Secret Invasion starting next week, which is June 23rd, I want to say. Let me pull
21st.
21st.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's enough random nerd stuff. Let's talk about the man of the hour. My favorite Spider-Man, and he's been my favorite Spider-Man for a long time now, but the recent game has just proven that he's a better Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse, to me, proved that he was a better Spider-Man, and I have mixed feelings about this movie. Across the Spider-Verse. So this is the continuation of Into the Spider-Verse, and before we get into the actual breakdown, the scene by scene, the moment by moment, I do have to make one point. Okay, one thing that really, this movie is just proves something that we've been saying for a while, and I feel like a lot of Hollywood studios just don't fully grasp yet. And I'm talking to you, LucasArts, but like, if you plan ahead and have an actual game plan for a trilogy, I wouldn't say easy to make a trilogy, but it makes it so much better. We're only 2 movies into this animated Spider-Man trilogy, this Miles Morales Spider-Man trilogy, and already there's so many callbacks and things that inform things that happened in the first movie that make that movie even better when you rewatch it now. That's how you do a trilogy. Yeah. And I just feel like it's a lesson. We'll go into more details as we go through the movie, but it's a lesson that a lot of these studios need to take. If you just make a movie and say we're going to make it 3, but you don't have an idea, it's never going to do well, especially on the
sequel. You have to plan the trilogy out.
100%.
That being said, I feel like this wasn't as well planned out.
Well, I don't know that it wasn't as well planned out. I think the detriment here now. This is your last warning. We're going to go into spoilers, heavy spoilers for the entire movie. If you haven't watched it yet, subscribe to our channel, like the video, save it, go see the movie and come back. Or if you don't care, then I just gave you the warning, but we're going to get into it anyway. I think the issue here is that they were too focused on making this a 2-parter and ending on a cliffhanger and a kind of like a dour note. And really, that never works. I can't think of a time where it was announced that 2 movies are going to be back to back and they're going to lead right into each other and whatever. Besides, the only time it's worked, and I know everyone's going to call me a Marvel fanboy, is Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah, but that's because that's what we were expecting. Like we were told both these movies are being filmed at the same time. They're going to release within 6 months of each other. So like this is what they're one story split up into 2 movies.
Right. They didn't hide it.
The only other time it's worked is Kill Bill, right? Like Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2.
Kill Bill, yeah, okay, that's a good example.
But that's because you were told, like, this is one movie, but we don't want to make you sit in a movie theater for 9 hours.
Right.
So we're going to split it into 2. So you're aware going into it. This movie, I'm so torn on this movie, bro. I really am.
I find myself, I don't know what the word is, because like I liked it a lot, and I love Miles Morales. He's my favorite Spider-Man. But like,
it's so tough, man.
Everything I like about it, there are things that I'm just kind of like, oh, all right, you know.
If parts of it felt very disjointed.
Yes, 100%.
Parts of it felt rushed, while the movie also felt long, which is weird.
Yes, the pacing, I guess, was all over the place because I had the same feeling. I was into everything, but I also felt like, when are we gonna?
Yeah, like all the cool Spider-Verse stuff they did were showing us all these other Spider-Men, and like that was all great. Like it was all amazing, like to see all these different little nods and in jokes that they did and inside stuff that they did. Like that was all amazing to try and like catch all that. But the movie at its core, was paced wrong, very wrong.
It's just weird, man. It was just I don't know. Like so let's just get into it. All right. The movie starts off with what ends up being a pretty surprising surprising is probably the wrong word for it. Decision. The first 10 minutes or so is focused on Gwen Stacy.
So that's the thing. It was the first 10
Miles.
minutes, but it felt like a half hour.
Right. And don't get me wrong, Gwen Stacy is a phenomenal character. She's really well done in the movie. It makes sense, she had a kind of a good connection with Miles in the first movie. So to me, it makes sense that this movie is going to bring her more into the fold. But it opened. I mean, my daughter literally during the opening where it focuses on her and her relationship with her dad and her experience as Spider-Woman and all that stuff, Spider-Gwen or whatever you want to call her. My daughter turned to me because she came to me to see with me, and she said, "When is the movie going to start?" I mean, that's telling you something right there. You know what I mean? Even she was like, "What is this?"
But that's what it felt like. It felt like, why are we starting here? And then I understand that like the stuff between Gwen and her father leads to the stuff later on between like every Spider-Man has to have a captain that he's close to that ends up dying, and this, that, and the other thing, and blah 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 blah. But it didn't land. Like the problem is nothing that they tried to do in this movie to precursor for later in the movie landed.
Well, and that is the issue. Like I said before, about they really focused on ending this on a cliffhanger.
Yeah,
because they set up so much, and I get the point is that we're gonna get answers in the next movie, but like you can't do that.
No.
You got to give us answers in each movie. Each movie's gonna stand alone.
You can end a movie on a cliffhanger, on a dour note, right? And still bring us answers in the next movie with it still feeling like a complete movie. Yeah. Look at Empire Strikes Back. Like Empire Strikes Back ends on the worst note possible. Yeah. Like Luke gets his hand cut off, finds out Vader's his father, Han's frozen in carbonite.
Yeah, everyone loses.
Everybody loses. You don't know where this is going. But in itself, that movie is almost perfect.
Right. Nobody would tell you that they felt like it wasn't a complete movie.
Exactly.
Like you by the end of it, you were ready. Okay, this is done.
I feel like this movie tried to give us Empire Strikes Back and gave us like, I don't know what.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was so frustrated with this movie, dude. Like I really was.
So after the Gwen Stacy stuff, which again, it's good stuff. We get our first glimpse to Spider-Man 2099 and kind of like the whole what do they call them? What do they call themselves? The Society of Spider People.
Yeah, this is.
I forget what they call themselves, but we get our first glimpse
as to that.
Yeah, I forget what the name was. Then we get into Miles, this is what we wanted to see. We see him basically trying to juggle his life, his normal life, with being Spider-Man. We see his parents trying to, talking to his principal. All that stuff is fantastic. That's when I really started to get into the movie.
That's classic Spider-Man stuff. Like,
right,
he's trying to juggle being in high school while being Spider-Man. Has to stop Spot along the way.
Which now here's our first I wouldn't even call it a retcon, but this is our first hint that this story was thought through. And Into the Spider-Verse, the guy who gets hit with the bagel ends up being Spot.
Yeah,
he basically and to me it was such a funny way of bringing that one little moment and making it way more important. You know what I mean? Now you watch Into the Spider-Verse, you see that moment, and you know that you just created. Spider-Man doesn't know it's his arch nemesis yet, but the big joke in this movie is that Spot keeps saying that they're enemies and that their arch nemesis is Nemesi. And Miles is like, I don't even know who you are.
It felt a lot to me like Mysterio
from
Far From Home. Where it's just like. I invented this great thing and he called it barf and blah, 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 blah. And like all of a sudden, like they retcon like all of Iron Man 3 to have created Mysterio somehow. It felt very much like that. I don't hate it. Like, I don't think it's a bad way to go personally. But again, like saying, I don't know if they planned that out or not. If they were just like, who could Spot be? Let's make him the guy that gets hit with the bagel.
I feel like they planned it out.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
There's more to it than that. I mean, this kind of the reveal comes later, but we find out in this movie that scientist in particular is the one who essentially caused the spider from what we now know as Earth 42 to go into Earth not 616. Is it 616?
No, it's not 616.
I can't remember the spider the
It's like 147 or something like that.
Yeah, whatever the universe is that Miles is in, and bite him on the hand, which is why we see the spider glitching in the first movie, and that gets
I will say
scientists in trouble, which is why he's in the cafeteria to begin with for Miles to hit him with the bagel.
Yeah,
I mean,
I will say it's a smart way of saying why Miles is so different than all
why
the
he's got
Spider-Man.
different powers, why he's just
not only that, but he's the only one that doesn't share something. Him and Gwen are the only ones that don't share some sort of name recognition with Peter Parker.
Right.
Like, and even Miguel O'Hara.
Well, Gwen did, but Peter died in her universe.
Yeah, Gwen had a Peter in her universe.
Right.
Miguel O'Hara doesn't have any Peter in his universe that we could tell about so far.
Yeah, so far, yeah.
But every other, even Spider-Pig is Peter Porker, and the anime Spider-Man is something, PP. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I will say that this design for Spot and the way they use it for comedic effect, but also to make him feel menacing as he gets more and more powerful, they did a great job.
I disagree.
See, I thought they did a phenomenal job. I thought that first I was kind of like, this can't be the main bad guy. And then as he got more powerful,
his design in this, man.
Why?
I didn't like his design in it. The wide shoulders with the skinny legs and the weird torso. The animation design on Spot I thought was way off. Way off.
Okay, but so animation wise, you're saying
but the design, I'm saying the design of him. The animation design of him. Yeah, the look
I'm talking more about like the way they use his powers, the way they actually.
Oh no! I mean, like, listen, the way they use his powers.
When they first announced he was going to be in the movie and be like kind of a big part of the movie, I was kind of like, all right. I mean, he's an obscure villain. Okay, I understand they want to take.
Yeah, it was an odd choice.
But so I didn't understand really how he would be, especially as someone who doesn't know a lot about the character in the comics.
Yeah.
But they sold me on his character being powerful and growing more powerful as the movie went on.
Yeah,
maybe I can see what you're saying about the way he stood around, but he has. I feel like the whole point of giving him the wide shoulders and the weird kind of like zombie stance almost is that they wanted him to feel otherworldly and not really human. You know what I mean? More of a monster, which to me worked. I thought it worked really well.
I didn't like it. I mean, for some reason, like I love the animation style in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
This one felt off.
So it's a point that I was waiting to make. I felt like I don't know that off is the right word.
There's something I'm not connecting.
I feel like they never settled into their own voice. Like in the first movie, in the beginning, it's a little jarring, right? With like just everything looks sort of 3D, but not really 3D, and things almost like look blurry on purpose, and it just looks weird. But by the time Miles is mourning Peter's death in the first movie, it's like the movie settles into, okay, this is what we're going to look like. This is our style. And I think with this movie, because of the fact that we're dealing with multiple spider people from different universes, they tried to mix all the different universe styles.
Yeah, and it felt disjointed.
It just didn't give this movie a feel of its own, in my opinion.
Because it was really prominent when we got the, I guess, what is it? The Vulture from Victorian age.
Yeah.
Like that
so he was like a paper mache kind of creature.
In all honesty, I love the look of him, but the scene itself with the mixed animation was hard to watch.
Let's pull up an image of him here. Let's see if we can get a good one.
Like you couldn't understand what was going on a lot of times.
So that's a perfect thing a perfect example of what I'm talking about is that he doesn't. Let me pull up an image here. It's like, is it a unique look? Sure.
Absolutely.
Does it stand out? Okay. Yeah, it does. But it felt like it was so strange for the sake of being strange and not really like an interesting take on Vulture. You know what I mean? If we would have seen this same kind of Vulture, giant wings, everything you see here, but in the standard like green kind of like Vulture look, then I think it would have been better. But the fact that they stuck with this paper kind of thing, and he's supposed to be like cardboard, I guess, or whatever it is, it's like
I don't know. It just didn't. The two styles didn't meld together,
right?
So it kind of made them more like it kind of. I don't know. It made him feel very, very disjointed. I understand he's supposed to be from a different universe, and I will say this: this was a better multiverse movie than Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, I mean, probably better than any of the multiverse movies we've gotten. Which I guess that's
100%. Because we actually got mixed multiverses and everything like that,
and they felt creative.
And they felt creative.
Each one did feel different. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
But I guess it's hard when you have when you're trying to make every one of them distinct, and then you start mixing the multiverses. I guess it's hard to make it all gel well.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I think that's the problem that they're running into now. Is like, how do you get one voice
right
in a multiverse?
What's funny to me is like this is going to be a battle that they're just going to be fighting. I mean, you can't really, not that you can't do it well, but you're never going to make everyone happy. You know what I mean?
No, you're not.
It's almost never going to gel well. But if you make every multiverse look the same with a tiny little difference, then no one's going to be happy that there's no creativity. Exactly. So I mean, it's almost like a one of those things where they're going to have to.
Trust me, I'd rather them swing for the fences and miss on this than do what they did in Doctor Strange.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like this. This felt more like a swing for the fences creatively, whereas they missed in a lot of spots, but they did land in a lot of spots also.
Well, one place they landed, because that's actually the next thing I was going to go to. Let me pull this up real quick. Is in our, I guess you could call him the main antagonist, Miguel O'Hara. Let me pull up a good image here.
Spider-Man 2099.
I thought, I mean, Oscar Isaac is a good choice for him anyway. I'm trying to get a good image here. Can I get a good shot? That's not a bad shot here. I thought this guy was phenomenal. I really liked his look. I liked his intensity.
Yes.
I loved how
best part of the movie. He's the best part of the movie.
And he was a good guy the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, I understand he's the antagonist and in story purposes, he was the one who was trying to stop Miles, but he's doing it because he's doing what Spider-Man's supposed to do, sacrifice his own shit to save everyone else. You know what I mean? And that's the storyline we got. So the storyline in the movie, you know, a lot happens, but the whole storyline is that we find out every Spider person has to deal with a canon event. And the canon event is the same as the events that we found out in What If and Doctor Strange, where no matter what, certain things have to happen.
Yeah, they call it a canon event. It's a Nexus level event.
It's a Nexus level event.
Yeah.
And one of them is Spider-Man's, the captain has to die.
The captain has to die.
So what we find out in this movie is Miles' dad is about to be named captain. Once Miles finds out the captain has to die, then he knows that his time's almost up. And Miguel, Spider-Man 2099, is basically saying you got to let him die. If you don't let him die, then you're going to screw up the entire multiverse, which, of course, Miles is not prepared to just let his father die. I mean, I don't think any of us blame him. And then it becomes a fight, which is, I mean, to me, this is the kind of drama they should have focused on more. Spot was cool. They made him cooler, and I guess the setup was that he could be he's the one who's going to try to kill Miguel's dad, but Miles' dad. But the argument of whether Miguel's idea of let your dad die so the multiverse survives, and Miles' idea of like, well, why can't I just save both? Like, that's a dilemma that's really worth exploring, and I guess we'll explore more in the third one.
I'm assuming so, but it felt so secondary in this movie.
It really did. Spot was the main focus for 2/3 of the movie. I mean, Miguel didn't even really get introduced until the last third of the movie. Then all of a sudden we find out his backstory. We see his personality.
Yeah, when you find out the backstory about why Peter's there also to like try and like and like why Gwen was so torn on going to see Miles in the first place and everything like that. When you find out that, you're like, oh, okay, like this is where we're going with this. Like this is, but at that point we're already 3/4 of the way through the movie.
Right. That's where I started to feel, like you said before, like, when are we going to get going? It's like everything's just dragging.
Like that's the movie I wanted to see, and I have to wait till the next movie to see it.
And that's the problem. The trailers made it seem like this movie was going to be about Spider-Man 2099 attacking Miles Morales and him trying to figure out why is this guy coming at me? That's what the trailers showed. I mean, I know they showed the Council of Spider-Man, but it seemed like that was what the movie was going to focus on. Instead, the movie focuses on Spot trying to get powerful enough to essentially become a respected rival of Miles Morales. Yeah. Which, okay, fine, but you should have shown us that. And honestly, focus on that then. You know what I mean? I would have preferred if the movie ended with Spot going after Miles' dad and us maybe seeing, you know, how that played out. Instead, the movie ends in a whole other direction, which I was like, what the hell just happened? And it was kind of a 50-50. Like, that was cool. And I was definitely like, oh shit, like I didn't expect that. But it was also like, but the movie just ended. Like, now what? That's such a this is where the cliffhanger focus kind of destroys the movie a little bit, because I was kind of like, all right, that was cool, but that has nothing to do with anything we just saw.
Again,
you know?
And we just talked about this with Fast X, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, when's the next one of these movies coming out?
Well, this
3
one,
years?
at least we know this one's coming out next year.
Is it?
2024. Yeah. It's, I don't know if they have an exact date, but they do have a release month. This one, the next one's called Beyond the Spider-Verse. Is that what it was?
I don't know. Like,
I'm
I never even saw anything about
it. So it's kind of like an after credits or mid credit scene. They basically said Miles will return in Beyond the Spider-Verse, and then they had a release window, March 2024, Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Okay, so at least they're giving us some sort of, because like when you do this in Infinity War, but the entire promotion for Infinity War and Endgame was both these movies have been filmed at the same time.
Right.
They're coming out within 6 months of each other. They're one movie. Blah 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 blah. Right. You're like, okay, Infinity War is going to end on a cliffhanger because it's the only thing that makes sense as to why they would split them into 2 movies, right?
And it was the same thing with The Matrix when they did it. Even though everyone's got mixed feelings about it, you knew when one ended, a year later we're getting the next one.
Yeah.
Same thing with what was the other movie? Lord of the Rings. It was the same thing.
Yes.
Like Harry Potter did the same thing. So like,
you knew there was multiple coming out. Yeah. So it didn't matter if it ended on a cliffhanger because you were like, okay, like we know that this is supposed to be this way. This one, you don't know that I didn't even know it was coming out next year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You had to say it was the mid credits where they made that announcement. They haven't even like announced it officially on any websites or anything like that since.
So we don't even know if that's even true.
Right. Yeah, it's true. You know I mean? We really don't.
Like, you get pushed back again. Like, so for me, like ending this on a cliffhanger like that is just, it just doesn't make any sense. Like we waited this whole movie to see the climax of like Miguel versus Miles, and now we're stuck in this weird Miguel's in one universe, Miles in another universe, Gwen went to the wrong universe. Right.
Like, so let's talk about that for a second. Like, so the way this movie ends is Miguel escaping the Council of Spider-Man.
Miles
escaping the Council of Spider-Man. He goes to where we're kind of believing is his home universe, so he could save his father, right? In the whole battle, we find out that Miguel is actually the first anomaly in the multiverse because he wasn't supposed to be bitten by the spider.
Miles.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I keep saying Miguel. Miles. Miles wasn't supposed to be bitten by the spider. Peter was supposed to survive from the first movie, and because Miles got bitten, it kind of screwed things up, and that's why Peter dies in the first movie. So now you're blaming Miles for that.
Well, it's because the spider wasn't from his universe.
Right, the spider was from Earth 42, which is a whole other, or Universe 42. So we think Miles by the end of the major fight, the climactic fight, we think Miles goes back to his home world. Gwen decides to defect from the Council of Spider-Man and go help Miles because suddenly she had a change of heart, which to me kind of came out of nowhere. I understand that she has a relationship with Miles, but like the whole movie,
I didn't feel like it came out of nowhere. I feel like it was kind of there all along. Like she was wrestling with that the entire movie.
So this is, I guess we kind of disagree on this. I felt like it wasn't that she was wrestling with should she help Miles save his dad or like that or stop him or whatever. She was just wrestling with telling him what had to be done. Like she just didn't want to do that to him, even though it had to be done no matter what. And then all of a sudden now she wants to go help him.
Six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of the same thing.
But anyway, so by the end of the movie, now this is where I'm literally thinking to myself. I remember being in the theater thinking to myself, like, this is the end of the movie. Like, there's a lot that's left to talk about here. I don't like. Clearly, they're not going to end it. We're not going to know if his dad actually dies or not, right? Come to find out, Miles didn't even go to his home universe because the spider that bit him was from a different universe. So he actually went to the universe that the spider originated from. And in that universe, he gets captured by his uncle, who we all know is the Prowler from the first movie, but it turns out his uncle's not the Prowler. Miles in that universe is the Prowler. Fantastic twist.
Oh, amazing twist. Amazing twist.
The moment his uncle was like, I'm not the Prowler, I was like, like, you know what I mean? Like it was so well done, yet it had nothing to do with anything we saw in this movie.
Yeah.
It was like, I love that. I want to see that, but that should be its own movie. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
exactly.
Like, so
like that should be the third movie. Like,
right. And then Gwen goes to the actual Miles's real universe, finds out that Miles isn't there, so she recruits basically the same spider people from the first movie, which was cool to see that they're basically teaming up for their boy.
And Miguel's got his team of Jess, Drew, because we had to have a change in that.
And the Scarlet Spider, which, come on, dude, he stole the show.
He really did.
That's Andy Samberg, and honestly, you can't find a better voice actor to play Ben Reilly.
Oh, I was so happy about it when he's standing there and he's like, "Look at my muscles; they're drawn so well."
Remember, he was leaning on the wall. He was like, "I'm just sitting here thinking about how terrible my life is." I was like, it was very good, very dramatic.
For a big time Spider-Man fan like myself, growing up in the 90s when we had the fucking Clone Wars and all the stupid, absurd Spider-Man shit that we had.
Yeah.
Right. This movie like fed into that.
Oh, 100%.
So well.
100%. We'll get into all like the cameos and stuff that we noticed later on. But yeah, so basically the setup for the third movie is we got Miles from, good guy Spider-Man Miles dealing with Prowler Miles and Prowler Miles' uncle, and however that's going to play out. We have Gwen with Peter B. Parker and Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Ham, and all the guys from the first movie basically going to help Miles now, and Spider-Punk going to help Miles now, and the Indian Spider-Man, which I can't think of his name now.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
I can't think what the name was, but basically they're all going to help Miles out. And then 2099 Spider-Man with his crew going to stop Miles at any cost, essentially. So it is like there's like a big setup for the next movie, but it just feels like such three different movies almost. That now have to converge, and it's hard to make that happen in a way that's satisfying, But
yeah, it's tough, man. It's one of those things where it's like they really swung for the fences on this one, and I think they kind of missed a little bit,
Yeah, I guess it's hard too, though, because it seems like the full swing doesn't happen to the end of the last movie, and we're gonna. The problem is, like, to your point, is now we have to wait for another movie to really know if this one's good, and that's not what you want to feel when you're done with the movie.
You want to feel that this movie was good, and you can't wait for the next movie to see what happens.
Right.
Whereas this one felt like such a bridge from the first movie to the third movie.
It really, that's such a good way to put it. It really did just feel like a bridge. It was just basically moving the pieces in place to give us the story that they actually want to tell us, which that's not a great thing. I mean, I'm pulling up an image of the Indian Spider-Man because he did look pretty cool.
No, it was great. He was great in this movie too.
He was funny. I like how he was confident, just kind of the opposite of all the Peters we've seen. And then, the idea of his uncle, his girlfriend's father, who was the captain in his world, was supposed to die. And we saw that moment supposed to happen. But because Miles was there, and even though he wasn't supposed to be, he saved him and messed up that canon event. Like the idea is fine. You know what I mean? The Nexus events that they're it's clearly there's a through line with all these different multiverse movies. But I just feel like I agree. I feel like they didn't just really stick the landing in this one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it just felt, I don't know, man. Again, like a lot of it felt disjointed. A lot of it felt, and I think there's a couple of things that ended that. It was the way they decided to tell the story, the multiverse aspect of it, and then the different animations that they used for the multiverse aspect of it also made it feel even more disjointed.
100%.
Pavtar Prapkar was the Indian guy's name.
I'm glad you tried to say it because I definitely wouldn't be able to say it.
Peter Prapkar. I should not try to say that.
We'll just call him the Indian Spider-Man.
Indian Spider-Man.
make our lives easy.
Yeah, man. But what this movie did well was give a lot of fan service.
100%. Well, I'm actually pulling up right now images of basically all the other Spider people because what everyone really went to see in this movie was how many other Spider people could be in this film.
And they jammed every
I
single
mean,
freaking one of them.
every like if you could think of one, it's in this movie 100%. They really did not pull any punches. And let's pull up a few images here. My favorite, like I said, Scarlet Spider was in here, which is awesome.
He stole the show.
But they have, let's see, I'm here. Here's the first
Scarlet
image
Spider stole the show. I was Spider Punk. I don't even think She Venom, and that's not even the real Jessica Drew that we had in the movie.
No, hold on. Here's another one.
We had Jess Drew.
These guys were all in there. We actually had, so they're showing the video game Spider-Man. We had Lego Spider-Man in the movie.
Yes.
Spider-Punk played a pretty big role. He's also going to be in the next one on Miles' side.
Which, again, like Spider-Punk, great idea to have him in the movie. His animation style made him feel disjointed, like he didn't belong in this movie.
Right. Well, I read that. I think I read or I saw on TikTok something like that Miles was animated on the twos, which basically means it's a new pose every 2 frames. Mm-hmm. Whereas in most animation, it's a new pose every frame. But it was just a way to kind of show Miles was not as smooth as the other Spider people. And as he got better in the first movie, that he started animating on the ones, and then that just kind of showed that he caught up. In this one, Spider-Punk is animating on the 3s the entire time because they want him to feel like he's different at all times, no matter what, you know.
Yeah, I get that, but visually, it makes a weird.
Well, again, that's to our point before. The whole time he had this almost like this aura around him that gave him this weird, almost kind of glow, which I guess was supposed to be because it's from a different multiverse universe. But at some point, everyone should just kind of settle into one look so that we can focus more on the story and not just on what the hell's the colors on the screen. You get a decent glimpse of a bunch of Spider people here in this shot.
Yeah.
But this doesn't do it justice. I mean, there's a quick shot of the old 2D Spider-Man cartoon where they couldn't even animate him swinging. Instead, they just took an image of him swinging and made it look bigger, like it was moving. And that thing tries to attack Miles. We had a Tyrannosaurus Rex Spider-Man, which I forget what they call him in the comic books. We had a freaking Spider Car. Right.
I mean, the Spider Car.
Come on, dude. We had what the hell's the character's name?
I mean,
Spider-Man in a wheelchair.
The 2 big ones are they run into the Venom universe.
Yes, which was awesome.
Very
quick, but awesome.
Mrs. Gao's convenience store, and she's like, "Get out of here!"
And we're talking the Venom live action universe, the Tom Hardy Venom. Spot literally talks to the convenience store lady for a brief second.
Yeah, and it was. I thought that was genius. Personally.
Oh, fantastic! Listen, I hate Tom Hardy's Venom, but to pull everything in like that is just cool. It's just a nerd's dream. You know what I
mean? They reference the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is Earth 99999 or whatever.
But they call basically Tom Holland's Peter Parker an idiot.
They call him an idiot, and they're like that Doctor Strange guy screwed everything up too. Yeah. So obviously, we're starting to see connections to the Sonyverse and the MCU. And
don't forget, we see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man.
Yes,
it's a clip from his movie, and they show him and Tobey Maguire also.
Yeah, they show clips from them.
We see both of them. Yep.
So we see all these things starting to meld together a little bit. And one of the smart things that they do is by referencing the MCU is that they're referencing that they broke the multiverse.
Right.
So now there's other multiverses out there that are like, fuck, these guys screwed up the multiverse. We have to go and fix it. So this whole thing is really starting to kind of meld together slowly. Which is good.
It also it feeds into the idea. Feige had said, I forget when, a year or two ago, that the Kang or the Secret Wars movie, in a perfect world, he would want to have basically anyone who's ever played or been in a Marvel comic book movie, not MCU, any Marvel movie, have a cameo. In his mind, any person who's ever been on screen in
and
a
I'm
Marvel
sure
movie.
He's going to manage to pull that off too.
Well, but this is that kind of happening. You know what I mean? We're seeing now in this animated Spider-Man movie, We just saw Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland. Now all three of them are getting either call outs or flat out being on screen. We see Lego Spider-Man from the animated movies. We saw the Sony video game Spider-Man in this movie, not just his costume. Like he's legit
the actual,
there.
Like he looks like he's in a video game. Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing.
We saw Donald Glover
that,
as the Prowler,
which was like talk about.
I was like, wow, that's so smart. Like, oh my god,
I was with my daughter, and I go, holy shit. She's like, Daddy, don't say shit. Which I obviously should watch my mouth, but like that's huge though, and there's such a deep lore and deep cut to the fact that it's Donald Glover who wanted to play Spider-Man.
We wanted to play Spider-Man.
Well, Spider-Man, yeah.
And then he wanted to play Miles Morales,
right? And then he showed up as Miles' his uncle in Homecoming.
He shows up with the guy who's going to be the Prowler,
right? Like they basically use him to set up Miles in the MCU, and that never really happened. But now all of a sudden he's the Prowler. It's like it's just.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, but like even going back to the comics, the thing a lot of people don't understand is that Peter and Miles don't exist in the same universe. Right. Miles is from the Ultimate Universe. So if we have Tom Holland, realistically, we can't have Miles in that same universe. Doesn't mean he can't be in his own universe and show up in movies, because obviously the multiverse is real,
right? And
we can cross over whenever the hell we want to. But it just goes to show you that they're paying attention to small details like that.
Yeah. It's funny to me if I was to tell you, or if you were to tell me, for let's say 5 years ago, that there would be a point where Sony's animated Spider-Man movies would be better Marvel movies than anything in the MCU, I would have told you you're out of your mind. Like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And here we are. As much as we're kind of shitting a little bit on this movie, I still feel like this is the better Spider-Man.
I'd say the first one was a better Spider-Man. This one wasn't.
This one was fantastic. I mean, I'm sorry. The first one was fantastic. The first one, arguably the best Spider-Man movie ever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you on that. This one takes a big drop off.
I think for this one, they tried to bite off more than they could chew. I think that's the issue.
Yeah. I mean, but I'd rather watch any three of Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies over this one.
Ooh, I don't. Yeah, that's close.
All three of them were better. Whereas, like, Into the Spider-Verse is probably the only one that's not better than is No Way Home. Like, and
right,
even
No Way
that's
Home,
close.
No Way Home and Into the Spider-Verse are up here.
100%. Like even that's close. You know what I'm saying?
So I would put Far From Home and Homecoming like just under those two,
and then this one's under them,
and this one's just under them. But it's not that this is a bad movie. It's just under them. You know what I mean? Like, I would still say this is better than any of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, easily.
I might disagree with you on that too.
I can't. I think this is better than any of the Andrew Garfield movies, better than the third and the first Tobey movie, but the second Tobey with Doc Ock.
I mean, Spider-Man 2 regarded as one of the best comic book movies.
Yeah, I can't. I don't.
It's hard to argue with that one. Yeah. But I mean, this one did take a big drop off for me, and my love of the first one. So it was hard. It was hard for me to like. I was watching this in the movie theater, going, "Wow, like." They're really swinging for the fences on this, but it's really not working.
See, like it's sad that the idea of the sentiment of like, oh man, they're really swinging for the fences isn't an exciting thing. Like it should be. You know what I mean? In the first one, you could say they were swinging for the fences, but every time they did, you were like,
because even the first one,
it's a home run. Like they killed it in the first one.
Like even the first one, right? When I saw the trailers for the first one, I was kind of like, I'm not really sure. I don't really like the animation style. It kind of looks, a little whack, I don't know, a little off to me, and this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Saw the movie, animation style was amazing.
Well, the animation style was, there's no arguing the animation style was fantastic. It was groundbreaking in the sense that now we have a Teenage Mutant Turtles that looks like it. Puss in Boots.
The trailer just didn't do it justice.
100%.
What it was, because like when you got into the movie and after like 15 minutes of like adjusting to it, you're like, oh wow, this is beautiful. Like this is really beautifully
in my preferred way of seeing an animated movie. I'd be okay with more animated movies doing that.
Yeah, it was definitely something that once you saw the whole movie in that style, you really were just like, this is a work of art. It's beautiful.
Right.
And then they took it in this one and added in all of this extra different styles of animation to signify the different multiverses. And it kind of destroyed that whole beauty to it all. Like there's that one shot of him and Gwen when they go underneath the ledge and they're just sitting there talking, and they have that beautiful shot of the city and everything like that. I was like, oh, this is so gorgeous. I love the way they animated this. And then 12 minutes later, you got Spider-Punk being like, I'm here too. You know, I'm just like, what is going on?
You know what the problem is so if we go back to the first movie, like Gwen didn't feel like she didn't seem like she always looked like she was from another universe. She looked like she was in the Miles Morales universe.
Yes.
In this movie, they tried to keep her with her universe like style, that kind of color grading. And it just contrasts too much, and at some point you gotta match it up. Like a good example I can give is like everyone shat on the last Space Jam movie with LeBron James. It's not a great movie, but one of the biggest complaints is that they tried to they gave Bugs and the Looney Tunes a CG kind of upgrade, and it didn't really land well in that movie. But the idea of giving them sort of like a different look so that it meshes better with the live action makes sense to me. You're never really gonna mesh two different styles, live action to the animation. It's never gonna look right.
But in that argument too, though, the first Space Jam meshed well.
I mean, it doesn't really hold up as well today as it did when we were kids.
I mean, I don't know. I watched it right before I watched that LeBron shit, and I was just like, I like to look at this way better.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I like the idea.
But I think that also goes back to like seeing classic Bugs just being classic Bugs. When you put them in 3D CGI, it kind of like the problem is that you're so used to seeing Looney Tunes as 2D animation.
So my point is, like I said, it didn't land in that movie. They could have done a better job of making the animation match, but the idea of giving them a facelift so that it kind of melded better.
I'm all with the idea.
Like they had the right mindset. They just didn't make the right choice.
And I think
they make it realistic looking is dumb. It still needs to look like an animated character, but you could have done it better. And here,
in this movie,
you take Spider-Punk, who looks like he's from like a spray painted kind of universe, and Gwen, who looks like she's from like a muted colors, like pastel universe. And fine, okay, it looks great in their own universes. But when you bring them into like the citadel of Spider-Man, and now they're next to Miles and Peter B. Parker and Miguel, who all look like they're from basically the same universe, I feel like they should also have kind of changed to look like they were from the same universe. Give them all like a uniform kind of style. You know what I mean? So this way, at that point, we're not focusing on the visuals; we're focusing more on the story. And I feel like the fact that they look so different constantly pulls you out of the story.
I think that's the problem, though. Like they could have gave them differences, but not made them so drastic.
Yes, 100%.
So, like,
I wish I could find a good example, because it's hard to find the images that show all the characters right now, because they don't want to ruin the movies for people.
Yeah, but the Spider-Punk thing for me, especially, because like you said, they animated him on the 3s, so it felt like he was glitching the entire time. Like it felt like he was lagging.
But you know what? If they just kept it where he was on the 3s, but he had the same kind of color scheme or same kind of drawing style as everyone else, but they just animated it differently.
I didn't like that
would have been enough
thing around him. Like I understand.
I'm trying to find an example of that, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. It just
they were trying to make him look like he was like punk rock graffiti and like postered up and stuff.
Yes.
And I get that aesthetic and I get that understanding of like what you're trying to do here, but when you put him next to Miles and you put him next to Miguel, it looks like shit.
This is somewhat of a decent example. You could see the difference, like the way the Indian Spider-Man looks here and the way Spider-Punk looks here. Imagine like that's how they look the entire time. No matter what part of the movie they're in, they look like this.
Yeah,
Miguel looks like that, and so does Peter B. Parker. And like it's so jarring. I guess is the word I'm trying to think of.
It was too drastic of a, and like if you're gonna do that, then don't make him a main character. Right. Like that's the other problem too. Is like I'm not complaining about the 1970s animated Spider-Man that they had a little quick gag for, right? Because it makes sense. It's a little quick cameo gag, this, that, and the other thing. It's funny, blah, blah, blah. We all laughed about
the
it.
Spider-Man, the Spider T-Rex, even the Cowboy Spider-Man, like
the car Spider-Man. Like
they're in and out.
In and out made sense that they're animations. But when you're having the main characters all have such drastic different animation styles,
right,
it makes the whole movie feel disjointed.
right.
And to be fair, like, to be honest with you, I understood what they were trying to go for with the Spider-Punk thing, but even when he's back in his own universe, I thought that whole universe looked like shit.
It looked bland.
Everything just looked terrible, like terribly drawn, terribly animated. I don't know what they were thinking with that. Like I don't know.
To give it a good perspective and Into the Spider-Verse, and going back to the first one, the main characters are Gwen, Peter B. Parker, and Miles. And then, like, Kingpin and all them, but they were in the Miles universe anyway. But the three of them don't look like they're from different universes. They look like they're all from the same universe. Exactly. Then you bring Spider-Ham and Spider-Man Noir and I can't even think of the anime version. But when you bring them in at that point, it was past the halfway point. You know what I mean? They weren't there very long, and their big moments in the final fight scene and all that stuff is during the collider sequence when the background is just all over the place. So their different styles didn't clash as much. But here you have multiple styles just walking around and having a dialogue conversation. That's where it gets distracting, because now you're almost focusing more on the visuals and not on the storytelling that's happening. That's what I found. That's what I kind of felt was happening.
I felt the same way though. It's just it was such a distraction to the main storyline of what was going on. Like, you can't make it when it's an animated movie, and this is why we talk about all this all the time when it comes to animated versus live action. Like, when you have an animated movie, you can't have the animation distract you from the story.
Yeah, 100%.
The story has to be there.
It has to be in service of the story, 100%.
So what'd you rate it, man? What was your final rating on
this movie? So after our conversation, I try to hold a rating now for once we're done. Right. After our conversation, taking what I felt when I left the theater and then this conversation here, I'd probably drop this rating down to like a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than you. I'm at a 7. I'm at a solid 7.
Yeah.
And again, like, it dropped a little bit after we started talking about it.
Because Into Spider-Verse to me is like a 9.8.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like so good. So good.
I agree with that too. Like, I'm up there, like a 9.5, 9.6, somewhere around there. It's almost a perfect movie. So it's like, it's sad that they dropped this drastically in the second one.
And I'm trying so hard not to let my excitement for the movie kind of inform my rating. I had such high hopes. I mean, I was so amped for this movie. But yeah, 7.5 is 7.5 is the right number, I think. For this movie, for sure. Yeah, not the worst movie ever. Like we said,
it's not. It's like I said, it's a better multiverse movie than Doctor Strange was,
and it does set up a phenomenal Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, but that's all it is.
That's all it is. It's set up for a Spider-Man movie. Like, literally, this whole thing felt like the animated short you watch before you go see a Disney movie. You know what I mean? Like, this is just like a story that's meant to be told at a later date. They're just kind of giving us the finer points. Imagine here's a good analogy, I think. This movie is to the next Spider-Man movie what Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special was to Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yeah.
It gave you a taste of what to expect. It gave you some story beats to kind of like, so they don't have to do it during the movie, but the real movie came later. That's basically what we have here. This is all the breadcrumbs that we're going to eat the meal later.
The only difference was that was an hour-long holiday special that they told us was going to be an hour-long holiday special, and this was a 3-hour epic movie.
2 hour and 25 minute. 2 hour and 25 minute epic event.
It felt like 3, man. I was in there like, oh my God, bro.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. I definitely
again, like, rushed and felt long at the same time.
Yeah. The whole Indian Spider-Man section dragged on. I mean, like, it's fine. The action was fine, all that stuff, but all the jokes and conversations also they had to like set up that action was not needed. They could have cut that whole scene down by half, and it would have done the whole movie a big service.
And just so you guys know out there, me and Chris do not talk about these movies till we're on here with each other.
Right. Oh yeah, no, we haven't made one comment yet about these movies until today.
We keep it very hush-hush between the two of us until we get on camera with each other.
Right.
And so no one knows what we're coming in with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we like to save it. We like to save it for the camera, save it for you guys. So that's Across the Spider-Verse. We have Beyond the Spider-Verse coming out next year. But Across the Spider-Verse just came out. Let us know what you thought in the comments. We'd love to hear all the feedback. And, whether you thought we were right or wrong, if you think we're dumb and all that stuff, I'd want to hear it all. We love the hate. like I said, there's a lot of movies.
You
coming
know, a
right
lot
now.
of you calling me a fat moron out there. It's okay. Still love you.
Let's keep it like, you know.
No. Bring it.
Let's keep it respectful.
I don't care.
But we got to keep an eye out, like and subscribe. We have Transformers: Rise of the Beasts coming, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Dial of Destiny is coming. We have Extraction.
Fast 1 is recovering.
Fast 1 we just recorded, so we'll get that one out there soon.
Yeah.
Bad Boys is going to be coming.
I can't wait for that. I'm so excited for that.
And at the end of that, whenever it's a new movie, we're going to do the new movie. But when there are no new movies to do, we're going to spin our little wheel and we'll kind of keep it going.
And the wheel dictated Bad Boys is next.
We got a lot. So
yeah, we got Transformers, man, Indiana Jones. We got a lot. We got a lot.
This month alone. That's just June.
I know. And
July, they're going to come out in July at this point. But that's 5 movies in June. How crazy is that?
Do we have a summer movie schedule here?
You know what? Maybe that'll be on the next video. We'll go over the summer movie schedule because there's so much coming.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys on the next one. We'll try to do this weekly if we can, but if we can't, just hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you get to see when we pop up. And we'll see you next time.
Deuces.